Well, we just thought we'd wake you up a little bit this afternoon after lunch. So, to put you back to sleep, I'll give you a few more fun facts about Cincinnati. So, has anybody noticed the flying pigs that were on the steam stacks at the baseball game, or the flags that say Flying Pig Marathon? Have anybody seen that? So that's a really silly story about Cincinnati. We used to literally kill so many pigs in this town, we were called Porkopolis. We were if you've ever read the book, Upton Sinclair's book, The Jungle, we were part of that nasty meatpacking industry way back in the day. So those flying pigs, we brought those out in the 80s. They are literally seen as paying respect to the spirits of all the pigs that we killed and sent down the river. It's a little silly, but those are the flying pigs, and so you'll see them all over the place. People dress them up. It's kind of funny. They put clothes on them and all kinds of stuff. But that's fun. That's one funny thing. How many of you guys played with Play-Doh as a kid? I mean, everybody, right? Invented here in Cincinnati, but not as a toy. It was actually originally invented to remove wallpaper. The company almost crashed until someone was like, "Ooh, let's play with it," and they made it a child's toy. Now it's a child's toy. Pretty awesome. All right, so the next panel that we've got coming up is another one of my personal favorites, the client interviews. Jerry Paluski will be our mediator for this one. So before I introduce Jerry, let me ask a quick question. How many military personnel are in this room that Jerry helped you along your journey to become a Focal Point coach? Stand up. So recognize we also already did this, but if you served in the military and Jerry didn't help you because you were here before Jerry, please stand up. Recognize our military. So Jerry has literally made it his mission to single-handedly open up a new life for military veterans called Focal Point since he's been here, since I've known him the last 5 years. Jerry has been with us 5 years. He comes from the Greensville, South Carolina area. He is a U.S. Navy officer for 20 years. His preferred style of engagement with a client is one-to-one, and he focuses on original owner, founder type clients that are looking to grow nationally. So those startups, those smaller businesses, those founders that are trying to stay out of the founder's trap, as we know. That's what Jerry really helps them with. He's also the South Carolina area rep, and he is proud of his awesome team in South Carolina. He thinks they're the most awesome, and that's okay. But we know Ohio's the awesomest.
Oh my.
I.O. So Jerry's one thing that he's going to share about his community, because it is pretty special. It's been designated in the thing that he does with his team in South Carolina, or in the area that he's in, is a resource partner for the South Carolina Research Authority. Their mission is to fuel South Carolina's innovation economy by accelerating technology-enabled growth, academia, entrepreneurship, and industry. And what that does is it provides clients for him and other people in South Carolina. So he's helping businesses grow, use their things, and then they need coaches. So it's kind of a really nice thing if you're thinking about doing that. Talk to Jerry afterwards, and I'll turn it over to Jerry.
Thanks, Ed. Napkins. And don't worry, Stephen, I called the lobby and told them to hold off on animal control, so you're good to go. As Todd mentioned in several, this is the wicked awesome part, to use some of the New England parlance. I've been sitting next to Greg all morning, so it's great to learn about best practices, but it's even better to see that it's real. Throughout the time I've been here, both virtual and in person, I think all of our client presentations have been business owners. And we talked just this morning about how you've also done other things, executive assessments, et cetera. This one's a little bit different in that we're going to dive into a pure executive coaching client. So Jason and Ben have been together for about 3 years. But rather than be the facilitator who talks too much, I'm going to be a good coach, ask a question, and shut the crap up. So first, just to get to know each other, Ben and Jason, could you introduce yourselves?
Can everybody hear me first? Great. Thank you, Jerry and Jason, for having me. Thank you all for your attention. I know we're after lunch, so appreciate the gentleman back there. He's awesome, and I'm going to get your card later because I need that for my interns, especially on Tuesdays. No, my name is Ben Simmons. I am a client liaison with a firm in Louisville and Indianapolis called Schmidt Associates. We are a full-service architecture and engineering firm, about 130 folks. Do all kinds of different projects in the Midwest. My focus is on our community studio, which does all kinds of things, for-profit, non-profit, developer work, community centers, parks, recreation, anything that's fun and really driven by a mission-driven client group. That's what we're really passionate about. That's what I'm really passionate about. So I've been an architect in the business about 20 years. I've worked in 4 different firms, including Schmidt Associates. Part of my story today is going to be about my transition out of my forever home, which happened in 2021, to Schmidt Associates. And a lot of that transition really couldn't have been done without Jason. So we'll get into that, but excited to talk to you guys. Thanks for having me.
Well, Ben, thanks for being here. Thanks for having the courage to come up and get in front of a bunch of people that you don't know and talk about things that are sometimes not easy to talk about, and that's ourselves and where we're at and where we're going, what we need to be doing. My name is Jason Ballard. I'm a focal point coach based out of Louisville, Kentucky, with Greg and John and a few others. And it's a real privilege to be with you today. First, to talk about some of the executive coaching things. We're all business coaches, but the executive coaching things really come about in the last few years and is powerful and is extremely powerful, makes a huge impact to people. I started out in a family-owned business. My dad had a construction company, so I was his free laborer for 20 years, and enjoyed it. And in Florida, so being on I was about 19 years old, standing on a roof in Florida, Tampa area, in August. And I'm like, what in the hell am I doing this for? And so my dad, I had no aspirations of being the owner of the business. And when he decided to get out of it, it wasn't something that I personally wanted to do. But ironically, I was on an architecture path. Ironically, we have an architect in front of us. So there's a lot of kind of synergy here, which I think is pretty special. But the thing that was causing me a problem in being there is lack of education. And my parents decided to get divorced right at the point where I was graduating high school, so I didn't have any resources, and I joined the military. I thought for a couple of years to get my education. That turned into 20-something years. I ended up being a commander in the Air Force, had a wonderful career. Then was into politics, then ran a couple different businesses with some other veterans, and almost 5 years ago became a coach. And it's been a true blessing to be able to take all of the things that I have learned from all of the things in my background, and a lot of that from the Focal Point community, all of you all, and be able to, hope to make a positive impact on people. And that's what we're really here to do, is to make a positive impact. So I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Awesome. Thank you. So Ben, we'll get into it a little more detail in a minute, but go back to something you said, if you left your forever home. So it sounds like you were pretty content in a place that you were well established. So what made you think you even needed a coach? What were you looking for in a coach?
Right. So the first answer is I was not looking for a coach. I was pretty successful at my last firm on my own. We did not have a very effective leadership team when it came to mentoring and developing talent in the firm. We were a first-generation company. The leadership had started it from 2 guys all the way to about 30 folks. So there was no career pathing. There was no mentorship. You basically sunk or swim. And so it's interesting, one of the first projects I was telling Jason that I really got put into the Shark Tank on was about 3 miles away from here. It's exit 5, called Rookwood, and it was a high-rise building, 8 stories tall, with 800 space parking garage on the back of it for $35 million, and I was 25. And the boss pulls me in and he says, "You're gonna fail on this job." And I was like, "Okay, I guess that's reverse mentoring. I don't know." You guys know maybe there's a class I needed to take. So at the time, I was at this firm, which was a very successful local firm in Kentucky. And I fought my way up and learned through doing and pulled in other resources. And ultimately didn't even know about career coaching until 2019? 2020. July 2020. So 2 seconds on the little backstory. I was still at the firm at the time. We had a huge opportunity to open an office in Louisville, where I'm from. The headquarters was in Lexington, Kentucky. We had just landed the Kentucky International Convention Center project. So for a firm of 30 people to manage a $240 million project with a national firm was a big deal. And so they said, "We want you to move to Louisville if you're interested, and we want you to manage that project by yourself." And I said, "Okay, I'll make you a deal. I'll move to Louisville, but I'm not going to manage the job because my job is going to be to leverage that opportunity for other work." And they had to think about that for a minute and say, "Okay, we'll let you do that." So in 2015, I moved back to Louisville with my wife. In the process, she gave up a promotion to move with me. She was working for the UK Marquis Cancer Center at the University of Kentucky. She had to give up her promotion to move with me. And I took that pretty seriously, and so did she. And so from 2015 to 2019, I was kind of running the office by myself, and I had no training. I didn't know what business development was. I had no book on it. I went out and bought some books and started to read on that. Mm-hmm. In 2019, I had a colleague recommend business coaching to a friend of mine. And I said, "You know what? I think I need that. I think I need help," because I wasn't getting help from my bosses. And there were days when I would get up from my desk and just walk to the windows. We were on the first floor of a big development, and I would walk out and just look out the windows, and it was like I was watching the circus go by. I was like, I know I'm missing stuff, but I don't know how to make things better. Mm-hmm. So my friend introduced me to Jason, and we had a first meeting, and I took my boss into that first meeting. It was very positive. Jason talked about the founder's trap, and my boss agreed that they were in trouble. Even though they were very successful on paper, they were in trouble. And at the end of the day, my boss said, "This is great. I love this. Let me take this back to my partners in Lexington." And he did. And then nothing happened. And then the pandemic hit 3 months later. And 80% of our work in design went on hold. And we froze all of our expenses. The partners went to zero salary. The staff went on 80%. I had to let a guy go who we should have never let go. We fired another guy and then hired him the next day in Lexington. It was a mess. And things got really, really toxic. And the one job that got through that I was managing in Louisville, we put it out in June. And I remember sitting on my back porch having a beer, and I said, "There's got to be more to it than this." And that's when I called Jason myself. And I said, "I need your help. The firm's not going to pay for it. That's fine. I'm going to pay for it. Can we make this work?"
That's great. Jason, can you talk about that transition from your side of the story of, you had this initial conversation, then went nowhere? I'm sure that's never happened to anyone else. And by the way, I failed to mention, we'll give a few minutes to ask questions at the end, but, go ahead.
So Champions Network, probably heard of it. It's your best source for clients. I don't care what anybody says. Don't believe me? Read Danny Creed's book, and you'll figure it out. So the person that introduced us was somebody I'd known for a few years, actually had worked for me. I had actually mentored her and actually helped her start her consulting firm. So she knew me very well, and she knew Ben and his wife very well. And she recognized the signs. She was a pretty smart lady, and she recognized things in Ben and said, "Hey, I think if you guys just get together, some good things are going to happen. And she was right. She had good instincts there. And so, yeah, when I first met Ben and his boss, we were at a coffee shop in downtown Louisville, had a great conversation, and I walked away thinking, man, I'm going to be coaching this business, multiple aspects of this business. I was excited. I was pumped up. I'm like, all right, this is going to be a good client. I mean, I can do a lot of good things here. And chirp, chirp, chirp. And so I'd re-engage, follow up. We're thinking about it, and I'm like, okay, high C's, overanalyzing it. Then the pandemic happened. I thought, wow, here's my door, my foot in the door. Now they're in trouble because they haven't made all the right decisions proactively. Here's my way in, but then they just locked down. Bad choice, right? But out of that emerges a leader. You know, in the darkest days and the toughest times, I will tell you as a combat veteran myself that's been in the Middle East many, many times, in those times are where true leaders emerge. Ben's a true leader. The firm went through a tough time, and some of the seasoned leaders in the company froze up and started going kind of a bad direction. Ben was smart enough to recognize that. He's like, there's got to be a better way. Ben's a high CI combo on disc. And he's thinking all the time, I know there's a better way. I know I can do better. I feel stuck. I feel contained. I feel like these people are controlling me. I don't know what to do. He was lost in the fog of war, if I could be blunt about it. And he's like, man, I don't know what to do, but I know I need something. I was like, well, Merry Christmas. I happen to have a few answers for you. And that started the journey in July of 2020. And we've been together for almost 3 years here, and it's been fascinating, and we're just getting started. So
That's great. So, Ben, you mentioned there's something else out there, but you didn't know what. Still, you had the gumption to give him a call, pay for it yourself. Surely there was some sort of expectations, or was it just, Lord, take me? Yeah. What? The first time you met, what were some of the things you were hoping to get out of a coach, and specifically Jason?
Right. So I loved communication. I believe communication is a real key to any kind of successful project. Any organization that is successful has effective communication. And I was communicating frequently back to the leadership in Lexington regarding my development, regarding the development of the Louisville office. What's our plan, guys? What's our strategy? And I just was getting very similar responses to what Jason was getting. And the work wasn't coming in fast enough. It wasn't good enough. And a lot of the work that I was busting my butt to go get would go east to the leadership in Lexington, get designed. I wouldn't see it for a month and a half, and then it would come back and they would present it. So it felt very detached in that sort of execution process. So part of what I was looking for was just clarity on how to develop, how to grow. What does growth and development even look like? You know, my standards of success, what I defined for myself as success, was extremely limited. And it was limited because the only thing I had been taught at the firm was success equaled money and jobs. You got to go out, you got to get the work, you got to do the work, and do it in a way where we can make money. And so the range of success, the definition of success, was extremely limited. Mm-hmm. That's where I was like, but what about everything else? Like, there's got to be a way. There's got to be a way to something better. I just don't even know what that better even looks like, feels like, smells like. So for Jason to come in and start to understand me, to provide clarity around what was success, that was one of our first conversations, really started to shift my priorities away from only considering success as going out and getting the work and making money for the firm.
That's great. You are an aberration because pretty much all of our clients know exactly what they want when we start. Yeah. But take that, Jason. Talk to the conversations and what the types of things Ben was saying, what you saw from the larger company. How did you translate that into an initial plan? So what tools from your own experience and focal point did you use to, hey, this is where we want to start?
Yeah, great question. So Ben was going through a lot of different things. There was emotional things going on. He was torn. Should I stay? Should I leave? He was second guessing himself and what he should do. Should he stay loyal and allegiant and it all work out and just have faith in the bigger group he was a part of? He second guessed himself in who he was, what he was capable of, and he didn't see his own potential. When he looked in the mirror, he just didn't see what I saw. And probably what other people saw. He just couldn't see it. The glass was foggy. And one of the first things that we had to get established real quick was, who the hell is Ben? And that was a deep conversation, well, I was born on a farm in 72 or whatever. No. Who are you? What are you really made of? What are your values, right? And so the first thing we did, DISC. I showed him through our tools, which are some of the best in the world, who he was. And I said, okay, man, here's what motivates you. Is this happening at your workplace right now? And he said, no. Okay, here's your strengths. Here's your weaknesses. Here's your energizers. Here's all these things about you. Are you optimizing those things? Are you maximizing your potential? No. Okay, then we need to look at some options for you. He's like, okay, that was a starting point. Next thing we did, not that I'm, no offense, Steve, I'm not a big module guy, but the conversation shifted and I did leverage diamond mapping as a tool as a next step from there. And I said, okay, let's get out of my world sucks right now, and let's talk about the future. Let's talk about what the ideal life is for you. Not about being the best architect in the world, not about being the best husband or the best follower at work. What is this ideal life you really want to live? What do you really want to do and be in life? What kind of car do you want to drive? How do you want to dress? How big of a house do you want? How many vacations do you want to take? All those important, bigger than life questions. And I got him out of his mode. He was on an island, literally and figuratively sometimes. He was on that island and he was stuck and there were sharks swimming around it. And he's like, I'm scared to get in the water. So we started unraveling that. We started defining a bright future, the right future, aligning these dots strategically for him and said, okay, what are the options? When are the options? How do we know which tripwire needs to happen for you to make that next best choice? You don't have to figure everything out today. We don't need a grandiose, 400-page strategy. We just need to know what the next best step is for you. And that's kind of how we started that journey. And it has gone like this all the way up till today. So that's kind of how it all began.
And I want to add to that, it was incredibly uncomfortable. However, Jason did me a service in saying, I want you to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And that set my mind at ease. And frankly, I had a great wife who said, you need to stick with it. It's okay to not have all the answers because, again, I had come into a culture and been cultivated and grown in a culture where you better have all the answers. And so for me, it was, God, I get off this call with this guy, and he's like throwing out DISC at me and diamond mapping, and I'm like, okay. It felt awkward a little bit because it was like putting a formula to my life, which is awkward for an architect to have a formula put, because we use formulas to figure out square footages on buildings and structural calcs and cost estimates and things like that. So to put your life in a pie chart, it was a bit of an adjustment, but fortunately Jason didn't let that drive the conversation. It was more of a backup of here's what you're saying and here's what I'm seeing, and then here's the data to support that, and that made it more of a conversation and more of a figure me out kind of thing, rather than this is what the formula is going to tell you. And that started to break it down. That started to break down the problems, which I never felt like could be solved by a formula. But that we got through that transition period of getting comfortable being uncomfortable took several meetings of, he's not doing this to be a jerk. He's doing this because he has a bigger vision and a broader perspective. And it just takes time to warm to that, right?
One last point. As a coach, it's your job to not be popular. It's your job not to be a friend, not to be their best buddy. It's your job to help them achieve whatever is important for them. And sometimes that conversation is telling them what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. And being vulnerable as a coach to do the right thing for the long-term best interest of the client, not just, you being in fear of you saying something wrong to the client or putting pressure on them, and they get uncomfortable and they spaz out and they leave and they don't pay you anymore. You as a coach have to get comfortable being uncomfortable yourself in that space where you can really dig in and have those kind of conversations and in a safe, risk-free, at the end of the day, I still love you and we're going to hug no matter what decision comes out of this. And I think that's key.
That's great. I want to follow up with a couple threads that you had there. One, it sounds like getting over that uncomfortable hump, you did have some pretty early wins, though. You could see the value in it and had a hugely supportive wife and Heather, so that's awesome, and 2 supportive dogs, I understand, is very important. Now, you're an executive, you're not the owner of the business, and we see and read all the books of, lead from behind and lead up, all that stuff, but early on you mentioned how you left the forever home talking about the job, so you're becoming this better, more aware person. It sounds like company as a whole didn't get quite as inspired by that, so can you walk through the journey of that struggle?
Sure. So if anybody is a Batman fan, I am. There's a line I love in the second Batman movie where he faces off against the Joker, and they say this is what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object. And so my career with Jason, our journey together, was really heading to that moment with the firm. And so I'm going to go back to, we're in the middle of a pandemic. Things are not going great for the firm. Animosity starts to pop out in our principal calls. We're letting people go. Firm is bleeding cash. We get some of the federal grants and loans, and that was a godsend. And we start to come out of it quarter 3, quarter 4 of 2020 into 2021. And we have our first principals retreat that fall in October, and they talk about a buy-sell. And so me and 2 other guys are the young principals, non-equity. We don't have a vote, and we have been hungry to be equity principals for several years now. We were made principals in 2018, and so we start to talk about the buy-sell, but it's in such abstract terms that I am just like lost within 5 minutes. And what I got out of that was we do have a buy-sell agreement on paper, and we're working on the valuation right now. And when we get through that, we're going to talk to you guys about buying in. So we get through that conversation into January, February of 2021. And essentially, it comes back, and the owner of the company, the founder, basically says, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're not going to follow the buy-sell at all. Right. The 2 things he threw out, and I'll just get real technical on you. The buy-sell allowed us to buy, he would sell shares to the company would sort of serve as a bridge. I would buy the shares from the company. It would give a backstop to him in case I ever forfeited, in case I ever went bankrupt or got hit by a car. He would have a backstop so that the firm would essentially pay him back if for whatever reason I couldn't. That was one thing in the buy-sell. The other thing was the terms. The valuation was completely skewed. Our valuation was based on the most recent year, back 4 years. So 1, 2, 3, and 4, and the percentage for the older years was much would reduce the older the years were. He decided that he was going to throw out the most recent year because of the pandemic. And he was going to instead add the oldest year, which was 2017, and that happened to be our most profitable year in the firm's history. So he presents this in a principals meeting in February to me and the other two guys, and he says, by the way, I have all the principals supporting this. And I asked the question, I said, what happened to the buy-sell and his partner, a guy who's incredibly respected in the industry, and I'm not going to give his name. He says to me, this is more of a guide. And so I realized it wasn't just the one selling it, it was another partner. It was the culture of the leadership that was backing this up. And over the next 3 weeks, I tried to talk to the other two guys who were also considering the offer. I didn't get anywhere. I took the actual sale, and by the way, I didn't have anything in writing. This was all out of mouth, so it could have changed any time. I took it to 5 or 6 financial institutions. I took it to 2 lawyers. I took it to a friend who's in Tahoe who does buy-sell mergers all the time and in healthcare. I took it to my dad, who was a banker for many years, and I said, what do you think? Every single one of them said, no way. You're going to get screwed. So I had a choice. What do I do here? I did not ever want to leave the firm. I love the firm. I love the people that I worked with. Ultimately, it came down to a Zoom call where I was in my living room, dogs pacing behind me, and I'm on with the other principals, and I had tried my best. Jason had coached me great about negotiating and trying to bring in a third party. No, we're not going to do that. So I'm on this call, and the principal, the guy who's selling, says, hey, where are you with this? And I said, I just need more time. And he said, well, we know what the other two guys are doing. What are you going to do? And I said, oh, that's interesting. What are the other two guys are doing? Keep in mind, I had been talking to these guys almost every other day, trying to coalesce the 3 of us, because I thought that could have been a negotiating tactic. And he said, no, they've already agreed to take it. And I'm on the call, and I said, okay, well, and I saw both their heads drop on the call, because they knew they'd left me out kind of to dry, right? And I said, well, so-and-so and so to my colleagues, I said, guys, congratulations. That's a really big deal. I'm really happy for you. Yeah, but Ben, when are we going to hear from you? And I said, okay, I just need another week and a half. Okay, fine. We need to get this moving. I said, okay. So we hung up, and like I said, I took the call in my living room with the dogs pacing back and forth. So the camera sees me and the dogs behind me. What the camera didn't show is my wife sitting off to the side. And she heard everything. And I turned to Heather and I said, what do you think? And she said, they don't deserve to be your partner. And that was the end. So I respectfully declined the next day. I didn't wait a week and a half. And immediately it was the funeral of, is everything okay? What's wrong? Can you talk? And individually, some of my other principals came up to me and tried to get me to tell them why I declined. And, we were just kind of over that. So at that point, it was shifting. And I'm not getting into the emotion. I mean, there was incredible emotion around this decision. I took a walk with my dad that day after I decided not to, and I said, Dad, I got to leave the firm. And he said, okay. And I said, I just want you to be proud of me. I just want you to be proud of me, because he and Mom were really proud of me moving back to Louisville, to start the firm. And they said, you're going to be great, right? So that was me making the decision, and I kind of want to answer the second part, because it completely shifted us away from the exit to where we're going next, and
That's it. Well done. That's exactly what I was going to ask Jason. So I do want to come back on a personal piece, but You went from being executive coach to executive transition coach all of a sudden. How did that change your impact? Did it change your relationship, your plan? How did you handle that as a coach?
Yeah, so when you're a coach, don't let yourself get labeled as a certain type of coach. Life coach, executive coach, business coach. Do we do those things? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, you're just a coach. And coaches can do a lot of things for a lot of people. Sometimes they just want to talk, vent, gripe, complain, point fingers. Sometimes they want to lay out a strategy for success. So Ben's story is rather common out there. There's a lot of people in their offices, in their homes, wherever, and they're in turmoil, losing sleep over what do I do? I'm stuck. I'm not getting promoted. I work for a jackass boss. I don't like the commute anymore, or whatever, right? They are stuck. They are hungry. They are just dying to do something bigger and better. And there's probably 80% of the people from my research are struggling or limited in some form or fashion. So Ben's story, while courageously, talking about some personal, emotional things, is a rather common story. So if you're out there, people are out there. You just need to get in front of them. They need you. As Danny Creed will tell you, they're walking around with a white sign on their head saying, I need help. And they're waiting for you to say, I can do that. So I'm really proud of Ben. I saw this coming before he did. And so in my executive coaching with him prior to this, him leaving the firm, my focus was on making sure he was in a good space. He was clear. He was able to make really, really good decisions for the long-term best interest of his career, but also have really hard conversations about what was really going on in the firm and the toxicity and the things that were really not healthy for him and did not align up with what he wanted to actually do and how he wanted to live. And so when we negotiated through that and the negotiating terms were one-sided, I said, Ben, it's time to leave. You've got to flip the switch in your head as this is my dream job. This is my family for 16 years. And come to terms that you're getting divorced. This is going to hurt, but it's in your best interest. And he trusted me, thank goodness, and now he is in a lot better place.
Speaking of getting divorced, I mean, you've mentioned how great your wife is of 14 years, but certainly this is a stressful time. She was very supportive. You mentioned business, life, past, all that stuff. Talk to me about how your relationship with Heather was through this process and if the coaching helped in that in any way.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, she had given up a promotion at the Markey Cancer Center because they didn't want her working remotely for her opportunity. And she said, I understand that. She wasn't very happy with it. On her trajectory, she was starting to have questions as well. And I was like, well, I happen to know a coach. I happen to know a guy. And sure enough, Jason had some conversations with her. Good news is that she has left her job and actually been recruited now to, she serves what's called the PDO office for the University of Kentucky, which oversees all of the research grants at UK, not just Markey. And she has a great boss. They're putting her in leadership training and getting her exposed. So she saw some writing on the wall as I was going through my process and said, wait a minute, I think now might be a good time too. And she's very driven about what she does. She's lost some friends to cancer, and so she really wanted to really be a contributor to the cancer research. She's an editor, and so she works with a lot of researchers on some of the data that they're pulling in. So she was extremely understanding. She said, on some level, she said, I'll do whatever it takes. Like, if you want to stay there forever, fine. I'll love you. It doesn't matter. She's from Ohio, so she's got a little more salt in the earth kind of girl. And I needed her, because I said, you're co-piloting this with me. You moved here. We lived in an apartment for 2 years as part of our transition while we looked for a house. And I said, I need you in this with me. What do you think? And she's like, I'm from Ohio. I hold grudges. Absolutely not, right? Like she was awesome because that gave me confidence, because there's money on the table and there's the promise of a bright future. And she's like, no, we'll figure it out. so that was pretty amazing. Our marriage has gotten a lot even better. There was a lot of sleepless nights. I was eating really poorly, and it's just all rounded. Really been benefited. So good
That's
stuff.
great. And it sounds like, looking back on the firm you left, that others were not so fortunate.
Yeah, they've since named a couple other principals. 2 out of the 3 have both been divorced. The firm really seems to value putting the firm over everything else, and I just didn't believe in that. There's a limit, and you can still do a great job and still service the world without sacrificing love. So
Right.
We made that call.
That's great. And the point of that is not to pee on someone's grave. It's to show that putting true values first matters. So let's go back to the positive. You're still working together. What are some of the more recent practical results, and what excites you about continuing to work together?
Yeah, so I get out of this whole last job and trying to figure out, okay, where am I going to go? And so that was scary as well. But Jason helped me focus right away. And Jason and another great friend of mine named Greg in the local market knew the market really well. He also knew that there were some firms from outside the market looking at Louisville. One in particular, Schmidt Associates, where I'm at now, had a great mentoring program. They had an incredible CEO, Sarah Hempstead. She's amazing. And introduced me to key people in that organization that were really community, and our big thing is servant leadership. So it was really about finding a value system that aligned with me, and saying, do we believe and agree in the same things? And I don't think I could have asked that question and answered it had Jason, frankly, not taken me through those exercises and had that conversation with me along the way. So Jason now is really over my shoulder on the strategic side. So I mentioned the community studio, which basically has the same amount of work in just that studio in my firm as my last entire firm. And so part of that is really Jason helping me mentor. There was a Schmidt came down to Louisville and purchased another firm. And so part of that transition involves some of the leadership of that old firm retiring, and them trying to find new leadership to come in, like myself, to help grow the Louisville presence. And so the dynamics around, personnel and expectations, and, there's a lot to unpack there. But Jason's really effective at taking it bite by bite and piece by piece, so that every 2 weeks it's a check-in. What are you working on? Because we are moving very fast, I feel like, in terms of the progress. But he's really good to kind of pump the brakes on certain things and say, focus on these other things, and just kind of remind me where I need to be spending my energy.
That's great. And over to you, Jason. Same thing. Our job is, of course, respond to whatever you need in the moment, but also keep that forward looking. So peek behind the curtain a little bit. What do you have in store for Ben?
A lot. I'm proud of Ben. He's gone through a tough time. It really, he was stressed. He was losing sleep. He's, since lost 20 pounds. He's healthier, better, happier. He's a different guy than he was a couple years ago, and I'm proud of him. And it takes courage and strength to go through those things. But again, clients do not see what you will see in them, what others will see in them. I saw leader in Ben. Forget DIS, forget all these other, tools and modules and this, that, and the other. At the end of the day, who the heck is Ben Simmons? And Ben Simmons is a natural leader. He's curious. He likes to get out. He's a people person. He's very well known and respected in the community, and he's doing some amazing things. He's been attached to Leadership Louisville, which is an invite-only leadership group for the community of Louisville. And he was in a year-long program there, so he has continued to grow and evolve himself and expand in many, many ways. Interesting enough, so we went through the transition of branding him and figuring out what the next best step for him and what is this ideal place for you to work and thrive and to really tap into all of the things that you are able to give and contribute to a better world. And there were some hard conversations there. And again, we went back to DISC, we went back to these fundamental things and mapped that out. Ben's a high C, so you have to show him, you have to map it out, visualize it, and get him to connect those dots. And so when we did, we prepared him for those interviews and made him think bigger, made him open up that conversation more strategic. I said, you're a leader. Talk like a leader, not like an architect. Nope, everybody assumes you know how to draw a line on a piece of paper and call it a building, right? You are a leader. You're not an architect. You are a leader, not an architect. And I think there were some mind shifts in his mind that I saw him go through. So they loved him. He gets the job, and they had just purchased this firm in Louisville, and now Ben is running the firm in Louisville. I'm like, yeah, what do you know? You're leading. Who would have thought, right? And so, as of recent, we've been spending a lot of time on business development. He's landed some really big deals. He's come to me, over the past number of months, and hey, man, we had this real big deal, and we didn't get it, and he was kind of down, and he was second-guessing himself, and he, kind of trying to revert back to the old days. I'm like, nope, you've been farming. We're going over here. That's not even a good client for you anyway. They're not even lined up, right? So it was great practice, but we're gonna keep moving, and we're gonna capture some bigger, better client. Well, he just landed a massive deal with a particular marketing firm in town that's moving to town that's going to bring hundreds and hundreds of jobs, and he's the guy. He's bringing them here. He's building the building. He's making it happen. And they don't just do architecture work and draw lines. They do phenomenal stuff. The stuff they're doing is changing the skyline of the city of Louisville, and by God, we need that in Louisville right now. We've had some negative things happen in the city, unfortunately, but it is what it is. And that's when people go through tough times, that's when leaders step up. He's a community leader. He's plugged into every aspect of the community because that's what he's the best at. He's good at connecting with people and really being strategic and doing things for the greater good. And that's what makes him great. That's what makes him awesome. And so that has transitioned into, okay, now you need to be a higher level executive leader, a principal level in a higher level organization. The team is coming to you. You are the leader, whether you like it or not. And that's an honor to have. And again, it just exemplifies those things. And to see him talk, to see him behave and take action and change his behaviors and be in a leadership space and not other spaces where he was before as a project manager and some of these other things where he spent his time is a phenomenal transition. So great job, buddy.
Great. Last question for me, and then we'll open up to the audience. You've been doing this a few years and heard great stories. You obviously care about each other. What advice would you give to other executives in either looking for a coach or what to look for in a coach?
Yeah, so I frequently send folks to Jason who are struggling with some bigger questions. Like there's a trigger, and what was interesting when I left my old firm, I had people start to come to me asking me about that transition, who were the brightest and the best at their current organizations. I mean, these folks were at Fortune 500 companies who were the rising stars, coming to me and saying, "What was that like?" And you could tell they were trying to feel it out. They were trying to determine, is that something for me? They were clearly not happy. They were also missing things, and so I sent some to Jason, and some of them I think had some great conversations with Jason, but just weren't ready. Jason said, some people they just got to be ready to be coached, and they may not have been ready to be coached at that point. What's interesting now, fast forward, many of those folks are actually leaving their places, and realizing that just because I don't want to actually address it doesn't mean it goes away. And so for folks that are you can just tell in somebody's voice, you can just tell in their demeanor, their body language, the way they talk about their work, their life, their family, something's not sitting right. Mm-hmm. And so when it comes to coaching, I'm careful to. careful to use the word coach because, it's hard. I try not to define that term or even use it sometimes. I just say Jason has been a great shepherd to me, for me, in helping me make a transition and figure out where I'm going to go next. And some reason the word shepherd seems to be, at least where we are, it's a little safer, it's a little softer, but it's all about clarity. Like that's the one word I use constantly is like I was trying to figure this out and I realized I couldn't do it myself and I had to also recognize that I couldn't keep taking it to my wife to have her help me figure it out too. So clarity is the one thing. And when somebody's like, well, I don't know, what's this Jason guy like? I'm like, he's consistent. He is going to wear a lot of different hats, and he's going to help you figure it out. Like he's just going to help you take one step at a time. You're not going to get there overnight, but he's going to unpack it all for you. And when they hear you talk about breaking things down into simpler concepts and ideas and progress, it's less intimidating for them than, oh my gosh, I'm going to go through the car wash and come out a totally different Ben, right, or totally different me in 6 months, right? It's not about that. So it's about soft selling.
That's great. And the word shepherd seems much stronger to me, actually. Well, we have just a few minutes, so over to use by South Carolinian, all y'all. Mark.
Yeah, so thanks very much, Ben. Really appreciate you opening yourself up for all this. We know that sometimes our different disc styles provide some strength. Sometimes we think about a high C. They may need to adapt in certain situations as they take on more leadership. How did you think about that, if at all, or working with Jason through it?
Can you simplify that question? What is? Ask that question a different way.
So oftentimes high Cs are very analytical.
Oh, yeah.
Very detail-oriented. They may not be as direct as they need to be with
Okay.
others.
Right. Yeah. So Jason is a very direct guy, and that's good. That's good. I needed him to be direct 90% of the time. The other 10% of the time, I just needed to figure it out myself. And so I think my colleagues feel like they don't want all the answers given to them, like because these are all successful people themselves. They need time they need time to think on it and figure it out themselves. And I think if you give them that time to figure it out, they'll come to that decision and conclusion actually a lot faster than if you keep trying to tell. Does that answer your question?
It does. So it's working with your team the way that they need to be working with.
Oh yeah, it's totally a communication game. It's totally what do I need to say to this person and how do I need to say it in order for them to really receive it and understand it. Yeah.
Time for one or two more. Chris?
So you obviously work together real well as a relationship. And Jason, you're obviously very proud of your client. Ben, what are you most proud of about this journey?
I think the quality of my life is a lot better. If somebody said, hey, how about you hire somebody that's going to make your life better, your quality of life better? Come on. Right. Give me a break. But I'd say go buy a bottle of bourbon and your life's going to be pretty good in about half an hour. Break it down for me. I sleep better. I eat better. I'm performing better. I was thinking about driving up here. The one word I'll use is calm. I am calm now. And being calm means you can perform in a different mindset than if you were constantly feeling like you're in the Shark Tank and the house is on fire. And Jason, by unraveling, I think he used the word, unraveling all the stuff for me, brought me calm. And so my quality of life is really, like me and Heather are happily married. We've got the house looking good. The dogs are, we hang out with our friends. Like I can make time for work and life and still be successful. And I'm not regretting it. I'm not like, oh God, I need to go to the office so I think the sense of calm and just the quality of life is really why I recommend folks to a coach, because they just need help. And again, you can't say, well, this guy or woman is going to make your life better. Like they're like whatever. But that's where it really boils down to. Is just I'm happier, I'm rested, I'm calm.
I appreciate
Yeah.
it. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing so much, because I can tell, heck, you're an ideal client because, you come prepared with a list of questions and stuff, and you can see I put, hopefully not dropping my iPad off the stage because you don't need it. You start with a plan, but then you just go where the conversation, and so for Jason, you can tell how he's beaming about Ben's success. That's the fun part, because that's our legacy. For Ben, huge appreciation for being so vulnerable here. I mean, you've been through this stuff, you're sharing with the whole room of us, and you're doing amazing things. So hugely appreciate you, and hugely appreciate Heather for letting you be here, and the dogs. But once again, thank you so much for Ben for coming and sharing with us, and for all of us for being able to help people like Ben. Thank you, man. That was perfect.
Excellent job. Thank you very much for sharing your story with us, Ben. Well, folks, we have he unfortunately has passed away, but we have a very famous radio announcer who is the youngest ever Major League Baseball player. He was 15 years old when he debuted with the Reds. His name was Joe Nuxall. What he used to say at the end of every game was, "We are rounding third and heading home." If you ever heard that, that's Joe Nuxall. So we have one more break, and we have one more session with two more speakers. So we're going to take a break for about 15 minutes. Please be back at 2:45. The one announcement I want to give you now, though, is we've had a lot of information sent us, like things on like positive intelligence and the stuff from yesterday and the branding, everything. Be patient, okay? I know that's, like I'm a 92D, that's not in my DNA. Be patient. Home office will drive those initiatives. They will share, they will communicate, they will get everything out to us so that we can build groups and take on the things we're going to take on as a coach community, okay? Agreed? See you guys in 15.